own thing that they were doing already before the colonizers came.
That's exactly my, the way I see it is because
Mata Baruku speaks.
Yeah, just woke up.
He says
Prince
the Christ.
Fanon.
Um, he says the Christianity you know did not start in Africa. He has a strong Jamaican accent, so listen, listen hard. Let me play it.
Yeah, give thanks. There was a man named Constantine. I don't know how much people ever hear about him or of which way who watch this thing ever hear about Constantine. Constantine was one of the emperors of Rome. But Fame Empire this stretch got into Turkey, or a place named Constantinople, where him name after himself. In a place named Istanbul. Istanbul is in Turkey. And for those of you who don't know, Turkey is in two different continents. It is in Asia and it is in Europe. Part of it is in Asia and part of it is in Europe. It was like a crossroad between what was happening in Europe and what was happening in Asia, especially in Jerusalem and so-called Palestine. Well, Constantine is responsible for most of the thinking and thought that come out of Christianity. Because we must understand that Christianity, as it was now, never start in Africa, even though the people them who create the idea is African. But the Europeans carry it to the next level, the unbelievable level that really make the whole world accept it. And when I say the whole world, I mean the whole Western world. And Constantine was the main man. Constantine had an empire that stretched, as we say, from Constantinople way over there. So. And the other time when him going to decide now how to make Christianity be more palatable to the world. Not like where the so-called Jews them did that talk about, or where the people them in a way. Because what happened was that there was a group of people who was fighting against the Roman Empire, the Greco-Roman Empire. So them create a lot of little war zealots, them call them zealots. And them fight against the Roman Empire with violence. Now, the Romans needed to pacify these people.
Mm.
And the only way them could pacify the people them is to attack them belief system and them culture. And one of the ways that them do it was to use a guy named Saul, otherwise called Paul. Paul was a Roman citizen, and him claims him get a vision when him got to Damascus.
Wait, let me pause it there because Paul, like, basically he's about to say Paul was a European. But before that, he said that, they needed to pacify the people. They were too rowdy. They're going to fight back against the injustices. So let's give them this form of Christianity, and it's going to make them passive. That's basically what he said. Let me play some more.
And him change. Because even though him used to persecute the so-called followers, him himself get converted. And when you look at the New Testament, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, we really don't know who write them.
Mm.
We really don't know who write them.
Mm.
The epistles.
But we know, say.
Go ahead. What'd you say? Matthew, Luke, and John. I don't like the New Testament of the Bible, and I don't care who gets offended. As far as the Bible, I really just like the Old Testament, and I feel like you could throw the whole New Testament away. What are you gonna say?
Well, no, yeah, because I think he's talking about the epistles that he wrote. Paul wrote the epistles. It's like I forget what sections it, but there's a lot of pretty much probably all of the New Testament that was supposedly written by this person named Paul, or and actually came out to be, or was originally called Saul, but ended up being called Paul. But he, like some people even say that it was actually, what's the writer name that historically wrote all these different plays and all.
Oh
But all
yeah,
right,
yeah. Because that's what they said about the Book of Revelation, that it could have been written by who you're talking about. I can't think of it right now either. It's uh, it doesn't matter the
yeah,
name. The
yeah,
guy who wrote all the plays.
yeah, it doesn't. But however, like all these things, because I mean, I think some of the stuff that was taken from the, because I mean, real, all right, the New Testament. Well, I mean, the Old Testament was what was wrong with it? What was missing? A narrative.
Mm.
That's really what was a certain, because like, in the Old Testament it was the law, it was the, you know, all these different things, but without the New Testament and the change in the world that they want people to accept, that's what
Shakespeare. That's the
actually,
name that you were thinking
that's
of.
it. Shakespeare, that's it. That's exactly who I'm speaking of. So he like, it's the narrative. It's because I mean, Christianity began, like, if for you to test me and Chaka, look up Gnosticism. You know, the Bible was to, like, the way it's written is in order for you to be able to learn in a few different ways, and it's a science book as well as a history way of understanding some of the history. But a lot of the stuff, like, we relive it now, we can see it in today because there's nothing new under the sun. Like, that, there's like the same possibilities of then there's possibilities of it here today. So that, like, that's one of the greatest things about the Bible. But when
and
we
and and
go,
and and they always talk about the contradictions, but a lot of the contradictions are the Old Testament versus the New Testament, right?
well,
And then when
yeah,
you go to church, they're always reading scriptures from the New Testament. Always. Always.
yes, and that's because they really are trying to control your mind, your thinking. Like, they didn't have MK Ultra back then. They didn't have, during this time period, they didn't have, at least that we know of, televisions that can grab your attention with the certain sounds and colors and all this other kind of stuff that can hypnotize you. But they did have, this thing that, this narrative that they built up to you, and a reason to, and a way to, you know, that ideology that if you don't follow these certain things, it's it's blasphemy, or you're going to hell, or like, it's all these different things that people couldn't see, but they could believe it because of, whatever, however good this pastor was to sell this to you. So
Yeah.
it's,
So like the whole New Testament is like about Jesus. It's all about the one guy. It's all about this basically one perspective or whatever, this one point of view, this one idea basically. And the Old Testament is not, and it's I just feel like the Old Testament is way more useful, um than the New Testament. Other than
yeah,
Revelations. I really like Revelations.
yeah. I mean, I honestly, like, I can find some benefit in all of it because, it is still centered around, the stars, the universe. But I think that because of the narrative, because deep down it does have ways to teach you things in an esoteric fashion, but at the same time, you have to be aware of those, you know, like, you can't look at it linearly and think that you're going to get a full understanding. You have to be open to different aspects of the teaching. Like I said, I mean, if you once you understand Gnosticism, anything that you learn in the church become way more beneficial to you because you can see it from the other side.
And I love your comment about thinking about it in a linear way is wrong. And it's kind of like how we look at time too, because if we look at time in a linear way, we're going to be wrong.
Yeah.
The past, the present, and the future all happening at the same time is a more better way to understand.
Yes.
Let me play some more.
And narcissism starts with a G
Yeah.
for those who don't want to look it up.
Constantine, 200 years AD or something like that. Him call a conference with bishops to rectify once and for all what is Christianity, what is the character of Jesus, and all these things. When Jesus was just a normal man. I wouldn't even say Jesus because I've never named Jesus.
And that's like exactly what you said earlier. Let me play some more.
There was no Jesus in history. There was a man named Yeshua. Yeshua was a Hebrew. And them other and a thing named Christ for him name. Christ is not Yeshua last name. Christ mean anointed. So you have a what you call a historical man and a mythical man. And them combine the two of them, just like a lot of the things them that you believe about Jesus right now was there before Jesus born. All of the religions, the major religions them of the Eastern world, was long before the so-called Jesus born. We talk about Buddhism, Mithraism, Zoroaster, all of them, and the Isis concepts, all of them derived from those places, like they have 500 years BC. But this one take over because Rome was what we call the Empire of Rome was controlling the Western world. And they sit down and conceive and make laws that govern Christianity and then put it out there as the gospel.
They make laws to govern Christianity and they put it out there as the gospel. So what I think that people don't really understand is that it's a state religion. The version of Christianity that people know of today is a state religion. Okay, so then we talk about the government all the damn time. We're like, oh, the government, they suck or whatever. Da 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 da. We don't trust the government. Da 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 da. Well, the government basically created this religion for you. It's a state. It's a
Well,
state religion.
well, see, I think also if they understand how the Vatican runs, because the Vatican like is perceived to be the church or like what we perceive as being a church, but it's actually the way it runs more as a political position than anything else.
Exactly.
Like,
and
yeah,
and
it's
and
it's
and and then if we talk about a temple or the house of God or whatever, we're talking about the temple, then it's us, right? It's our body, right? And then
it's
it's like,
represent yes, symbolic. Like we are the temple. Where each
so
like God exists in each one of us.
so
So,
then
but we have
why do we have to go to a place, a state sponsored place to worship God, you know?
well, you have to meet the narrative, and if you don't, you're less than righteous because you didn't pay your way towards God. You didn't give up your tithes. You didn't give up your tax. You didn't
Mm,
pay you're not paying your way into forgiveness or,
mm,
into, what I'm saying? Like, that's what it turned into, you know what I'm saying?
mm.
Because before there was a church, when we were primitive, God was not with us then. Like
I'm telling
the
you.
church, before the church existed, that we were just like we probably more godly then than we were after the church came about.
And I would take off the probably, because what about all the people that's out there in the bush now? What about all of the Aboriginal peoples or whatever? Like, you got these South American untouched tribes out there. So
The
uh,
Centennial Island and stuff like that.
so all these people are going to hell. They're not, they haven't been introduced to Jesus. So then they're going to hell because they got to accept Jesus as their Lord and personal
And
Savior so
Savior.
they can go to heaven.
Yeah, and I hate to, I feel bad laughing because I know like some people may not take that well, but like, we've been played you know, and that's something that a lot of us have to accept. And it's not, you know, the Bible is not bad. It's the way that we look at the Bible that becomes bad, because we're not really acting out of honesty and out of, you know, like common sense, because we rather believe a narrative that we don't understand, because it gives us the leeway to be less than what we really could be.
I want to play some more. And his point is that the Christianity did not start in Africa. Basically, it went back. Let me play the rest of this, and then I'm gonna wrap it. What happened? I'm freezing up.
And this gospel was to pacify the rebellious Jews them in Palestine, in Israel. And that is how them get for really maintain them power. They maintain them power by causing the people them to be so passive in them thinking and giving up them culture that them now have the strength to fight. And we see this happening right now. We see it happen right now. That the fighters of the African Revolution get pacified most of the time because of religious belief, religious concepts that is coming from this book that most people are telling you say is African people, is black people write it. Black people never have nothing to do with it. More than say, we did live a certain life that was before the book. And these guys take that lifestyle and inject it in a freedom lifestyle. So them fuse Roman, Greco-Roman culture with Jewish culture and make out and become Christians. And that is how Christianity come. Christianity is not here to free you. Christianity is here to pacify you. And the more African people go into this idea and this concept of Christianity, is the more them get pacified into becoming a part of the Greco-Roman Empire.